Hey everybody, welcome to Nifilmism. I'm Ryan.
I'm Drew.
And before we get started, had a little bit of housekeeping to take care of. One of our very first listeners, a friend of mine by the name of Brian, actually has a Twitch channel up right now, and he's going to be playing Abduction soon. And if you're like me, I grew up watching my brother play Myst because I just couldn't quite figure it out. So I'm not going to actually play Abduction, so it's actually more fun for me to watch it. But I mean, if you're looking for a wide variety of gameplay spanning a bunch of different genres, check out his Twitch channel. It's at Twitch TV slash Antagonizer, ANTAGONIZER 2000, the numbers. And he's live weekly, 6 p.m. Eastern, Thursday through Tuesday. And if you happen to listen here and go over and watch him, just mention that we sent you over there. I'm sure you'd appreciate it. A little bit more housekeeping. Before we actually get into the topic of today, and the topic for today is another sort of a staff recommendation.
Yeah, it's one of those, we both have been like, hey, have you seen this yet? No, I haven't. Well, watch it.
Yeah, what did we do last time? The Gray and...
We did The Gray and The Nice Guys.
That's right. This week, I think we're going to do Master and Commander and Moon?
Yeah, to a degree, yeah. Because I recommended Jackie Brown, but Jackie Brown's so goddamn
3 fucking hours.
Jackie Brown's a good movie when you're hungover on a Sunday.
I really thought that at some point maybe I'd watched it, but nothing looked familiar when I fired it up. Yeah, so I didn't have 3 hours. Plus, I've been fighting a cold, and anyway, before we get into those, have you seen anything recently that you want to recommend?
I've watched some documentaries recently, actually. I watched on Netflix, there's the Jim Carrey one about making Man in the Moon. That movie's awesome. Like, that movie, the documentary is awesome. The movie itself is fantastic itself. But the documentary is actually really, really good. I mean, I just had time one night. I was drinking. I was just like, I have an hour and a half or whatever. I heard this is pretty cool. Looked into that. That was great. And then I also watched American Movie. It's called American Movie. It's a documentary about this guy in Milwaukee who is just an indie filmmaker, not from a lot of money, has the knowledge, but he just doesn't have everything there. And it's from 99. It's older. It's not on any of the streaming stuff. You may have to use bet channels.
Not that we officially condone that, NSA.
But if you can find it, I think you can get it off of Amazon. If you want to go official squeaky clean, you can get the DVD off of Amazon. Highly recommended. It's a long documentary, but it's really, really good. Worth watching.
I will second your nomination on
Jim and Andy,
Jim and Andy, which is on Netflix right now, because that was actually a hangover. It was a bad one. I
want something on that I can.
I fell asleep a couple of times watching it, not because it was bad, but because it was either doze off or vomit. So that was. I will recommend that one. And recently, I also saw on Amazon Prime, It Comes at Night, which is a sad case of a movie being mismarketed, because to sell a horror movie, which is where nothing really happens, is kind of tough. But it is one of the most gut-wrenching, horrifying, psychological thrillers I've ever seen. But it was marketed as something that it absolutely wasn't. Regardless, if you want to ruin your day, if you want to need a hug after you watch a movie, go watch that.
I also did watch the last Abrams Star Trek Beyond.
Okay.
And that's probably the best of the three. Although you could tell that the budget really wasn't being given to them by Paramount. But
we need to do a third one.
It's the best of those three, yeah, I would say.
So I figured I would also just mention, if you have enough time to listen to a podcast as bad as this one, you have the time to go and watch a couple of these movies we just recommended.
Especially if you're paying for this stuff.
If you got Amazon Prime or Netflix, you should be turn this off. Just go watch those. And
honestly, Prime is one of those like hidden gems in that, like, you get a Prime account and you're like, cool, like free shipping. It's only once a year, and then you realize, oh, I have a premium Twitch subscription that I had no idea about. And, oh, I have access to, like, a bunch of relatively recent movies, like, really recent stuff sometimes.
And no, we're not being paid by Amazon or anything.
I
to
also
say
watched
this.
The Tick. The Tick was awesome. You should look into The Tick.
On to today's movies, because we'll get back to that at
Yeah.
another time. But one of my all-time favorites is Master and Commander, the sadly almost forgotten 2003 Russell Crowe movie.
Should have been in our historical fiction episode.
Well, I did mention it, but
Had I not been a plebe and actually watched it by then.
I understand that maybe you didn't watch it because nobody really watched that one. It did okay in the box office, but not well enough to get a sequel, which is what they had originally intended. And it had the misfortune of being up against The Return of the King in the 2004 Oscars, which meant that it was always that phrase, always a bridesmaid, never the bride. Yeah, this movie was doomed to fail at all the awards. It got plenty of nominations, all well deserved. Sound design, everything is. But what were your thoughts?
I thought it was excellent. It's one of those. It's a great hidden gem, not by virtue of it being better than the sum of its parts, because it is, but its parts are excellent. Like high production value, excellent cast. But it's one of those. Oh, I can understand why this flew by a lot of people, general public wise, because it's a movie where not a lot always happens. The pace is a lot slower because that's the timeline. That's the time and setting of how seafaring was during the Napoleonic Wars. Like, you were at the whims of the wind, and you really couldn't get faster.
And you spend a good chunk of the movie just watching people sit on a boat because they can't go anywhere because they're in the doldrums. Backing up a little though, in terms of movie fundamentals, it is a movie that I would recommend to anyone who wants to actually look at what a movie should be. The first 10 minutes of a movie, the first however many pages of a book, are there to set your tone, to hook your audience, and to really make it known what you're doing with this movie. You should have a sense of the movie by the 10-minute mark. Agreed?
Yes.
Okay. Master and Commander opens somewhat. It's got a little bit of just Napoleonic War history on the screen.
Yeah. It's a little. Here's a refresher, or if you just didn't even learn this, here's where we're at. Basically.
Because we're in America, and the Napoleonic Wars are simply the background to the Louisiana Purchase, and that's the only reason that we learn about them in school here. More's the pity. It's fascinating, but that's an aside. It tells you enough to let you know the historical context, but it doesn't go into true exposition. And through just a little bit of
that, and it tells you that the story you're about to see is not crucial, but it's seen as crucial in the sense that, like, we don't want the war to spread to our spice trade, our trading territories. But it's not like this is the only ship that's going there. It's right. Basically you're out to stop a privateer from bringing this nonsense to the Pacific.
Right. But then it gets into the movie itself. And there's a brilliant opening couple of minutes that says more than any clunky exposition could. You go along the gun deck. It's kind of dark, but you see that each of the cannons has a name written on it. So it gives you that very lived-in feel to the world, and it establishes, okay, everybody on this ship is an individual character because they've gone as far as naming their guns. You see the cook. You see the doctor not too long after. I'll get back to that, though. I'm jumping a little ahead. And you just get a small sense of life at sea, people going about just being up in the rigging, et cetera, et cetera. And then it goes into setting up the first battle. And through saying almost no dialogue, you get a sense of the characters, of the captain, his best friend, the doctor, and a number of other characters.
And the thing I would say this movie excels at is subplot, in the sense that everything it's almost like a pickup sticks pile where you've got a character on their trajectory, but it's all a part of the giant mesh of all the characters interacting. Yes. Like it almost feels like it's an anthology story without it being an anthology story, because you've got You've got just the seamen. You've got the young nobles that are are training to be officers. You've got the officers that are about at the point where they need to elevate between being a midshipman to being a lieutenant. You have, the captain and him, and him being close friends with the doctor outside of what they're doing, but also having to be the superior to the doctor on the missions.
And all of this is done with it's very minimalistic, but it gets the point across.
Yeah.
And then a lot has been made of the very opening shot of Star Wars, where you've got the Star Destroyer that's chasing the smaller rebel ship.
The in media res of it, that you're dropped into the action.
Not only that, but it tells you a lot about, okay, the Empire is superior to the rebels because they've got the bigger ship. The ship is massive. It's the one doing the chasing. It's not being chased. It gives you all this information. You know that this English ship is chasing the French ship, and immediately in the first 5-10 minutes of the movie, that French ship opens up, does massive destruction, and then there is a gorgeous shot of the ships side by side, and you can tell that the French ship is a little bigger. It has outgunned the English ship, and without them ever needing to say it, you know what this story is. It is a captain, a very bold captain, that is taking an outgunned ship and trying to pursue a bigger one, but they don't have to say it out loud. They do later on, but you know in the opening of the movie what's going on, which is something that you don't get a lot of anymore. A lot of movies in the last 15 years have gone over to clunky exposition.
And it does realistic tension well, and not dramatic slow build tension really, because I believe in that first sequence you have one of the young officer recruits thinks he sees something, and it's not like slow build like drag a violin note, like it's not that. It's a I think I see something. Let's wake everyone up. Like let's get to that point, and then you've got like a 5 or 6 minute sequence of did you see something? Well, I thought I saw something.
And we as the audience think we saw something.
Yeah.
But did we?
Yeah. It's very at least in that scene, it's very excellent at not being omniscient as far as like the way it's narrated, in the sense that you don't see a cutaway of like seeing the rear of the ship in the fog. You just see what this kid saw. Yeah, which is maybe a shape, maybe not. I don't know.
It looks like something out in the mist. Yeah. Who knows? The other movies that now this is the one that I had recommended to you, and then looking through my Netflix queue the other day, you had been honestly surprised that I had never seen Moon.
Yeah, especially given that if you are following in sequence with our episodes, we had just talked about sci-fi. Moon is I don't know if it's I wouldn't say it's not classic or anything, but it's one of those modern sci-fi movies that people typically have seen at this point. It's only about 5 or 6 years old, I want to say.
9. It's pushing 10 years.
Wow.
And honestly, I can't say I was a huge fan. It got, I think, an 89 on Rotten Tomatoes and an almost identical fan
It's not
score.
a bad movie, but it's not really as memorable as it might have been when it came out.
If
the latency bias is gone.
If it wasn't for stuff like Arrival and Ex Machina and
stuff
a few others
pushing the envelope further as far as sci-fi,
then you could look back on it and say, okay, this is one of the gems in recent sci-fi that kept it going. But it really has been overshadowed by what are truly superior movies.
It's also an indie, though.
It is, but I think a lot of it is just Sam Rockwell.
Yeah.
He does a good job.
It's part of why Rockwell became a thing again, though. Like, he probably wouldn't have been in 3 Billboards if this hadn't come out and made people realize, oh, yeah, he's a great character actor.
That being said, I was not enamored with the plot. The plot was...
Once you kind of get to realizing, oh, yeah, this is what it is, and it just kind of, okay, resolve.
It just... After... Spoilers, because whatever, it's been 10 years.
Yeah.
Fuck it. It gets to a point in the movie where Sam Rockwell, pretty early on, wakes up after an accident and finds that there's another Sam Rockwell out where he thought he was in a crash. And it becomes obvious that there are clones.
Yeah.
So for the first probably 5-10 minutes, I was actually looking for little things like, okay, do these characters ever actually make physical contact? Because I was at that point, not knowing what the movie was about, thinking, oh, okay, this guy's been on the moon so long that he has actually started to go nuts.
Yeah, his sense of time. But then you realize, no, it's exactly what it appears to be.
Yeah, and it set it up that way, and I thought this is great. This is going to be a psychological sci-fi where you question the whole time: is this person hallucinating? Is he going crazy? But it becomes pretty obvious a little while later, and a major plot point, that it is actually a clone. And at that point, it becomes just a proto episode of Black Mirror. It's clones on a moon station.
It's a what, 2.5 hour or 2 hour Twilight Zone episode.
Hour and a half.
Yeah,
that's why I watched it. Yeah. It was a little bit shorter.
It's still a fun movie in that sense of just like this got a budget and this got some actual actors. And but again, it's one of those, it's older now, and I haven't watched it since I think I first saw it. But it was one of those, I had heard good things and I was like, oh, I'll look into it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting enough. I like weird things.
I was really enjoying the first half hour or so of it until it became obvious that it was just a plot with clones. Yeah. And okay, well, these clones are the person that was on the moon base cloned himself so that every couple of years at the end of this person's cycle, you can kill a clone, bring out a new clone, have them work their cycle, and they think they're going home. But there are so many issues with that. For one, there's a robot that can do everything better than Sam Rockwell already up there. Yeah. Why was he up there?
I think it's just because thematically they needed something for him to emote with or talk to.
Yes.
Even if it was unfeeling and unresponsive largely,
but the robot was better at everything.
Yeah.
So why was he up there to begin with?
Exactly.
So that I'm not usually the kind of person to poke plot holes. I'm usually
no. With that setting of like, why would you do something so violating?
Right, it's a clone, but it's still a human being. Yeah. When you have a robot that can just do it anyway.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how Kevin Spacey as half HAL 9000, half GLaDOS does a pretty decent job, but at this point, everything with Kevin Spacey in it seems a little bit.
Yeah, he's kind of persona non grata at this point.
Yeah.
But I think he was probably brought on because that's his shtick, is like cadence and wit,
and he was good at it.
Oh yeah,
but it didn't really add anything.
The movie is good in the sense that it's a unique enough plot, and that it's got that almost first movie feel, kind of like a Reservoir Dogs, where it's like, oh, you've only got a small space and you've got this much cast in that, and you've got your story basically. So it doesn't stray too far from what's there. It's not throwing in a bunch of plot threads that go nowhere. Everything kind of feeds into what its plot is, but it's just not a deep plot really.
Yeah, it's a little too just.
And you find out almost too quickly what the plot is. That's one of those things.
And at that point, it struggles. I will admit, I was bored. Not I'm gonna say bored to tears.
Once it turns to, okay, I know I'm basically destined to just decay and die here. I want to get out, and then it's just like, okay, and then you can expose the plot, but you're still like decaying.
And what is the point of him trying to get back to Earth just to confuse his daughter, whose dad is already back there? It is the ultimate act of selfishness.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm a clone, you're a clone. This is awful. It would have been better suited if, I don't know, I mean, no matter what, this character was going to do something selfish. Because the plot of the movie is that they're mining the moon for resources for Earth.
Yeah.
So if we're accepting that he was necessary up on there, which I don't buy for a second, as we've already talked about, you got two options. You either just accept that you're going to die because you've got mercenaries coming up to kill you and just fire up a new clone. You go back to Earth, or if you're trying to say, no, it's not worth it. Did you ever take philosophy, Ethics 101 in college?
No, I did take philosophy courses.
The one Ethics 101 is almost like in Snowpiercer. You got the one kid in the front of the train. If one person has to suffer,
of the one for the many,
exactly. You could have gone that route with it. Is it worth that? And that could have been a very cool concept. Knowing that you're that one person, are you willing to make that sacrifice for the good of everybody else?
But I mean, it's not even what he's mining is not determined to be like. It's not put up as like some kind of MacGuffin where it's like it's a crucial resource. It's just resource. Whatever makes like future Earth work. But it's not like, no, if you don't do this, like
everyone will die. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, there's no real stakes other than like, hey, I just want to expose that this is like totally corrupt the way this company's like handling my version of this existence, my existence.
Yeah, so you either
it's very individualistic in that sense.
You either destroy the whole thing, because it's wrong to do that to the one person. Or you accept it, or you do what he does and get a convoluted plot to get back to Earth to see your, I guess you'd say your daughter, but is it really because you were cloned from the guy? And in the end, it's a very selfish act.
Yeah, that's what I think they were trying to go for thematically, is that like everything transfers over to the
I don't care. It's if there wasn't this recent crop of excellent movies, this one I might look on it a little bit more favorably.
But no. It's the seed. It's seed like in the sense that it's one of those earlier modern. Hey, we can still do sci-fi.
And thank you.
People will go looking for it.
Thank you for doing that, but you're as irrelevant as the clones that are left behind. So. Moon, you're on Netflix, so that's probably where you belong at this point. So
yeah, it's one that has been forgotten by time because things have grown above it. Things have covered it, basically.
As opposed to Master and Commander, the burying of which is a travesty because
there's nothing like it's really being made nowadays.
No, it was in an era too where all of the big historical epics, which we've talked about before, this is 2003, and you're talking a couple years after Gladiator, which is probably why Russell Crowe ended up with this role.
Was 2003, not sure, what was it? Kingdom of Heaven? I was in college I was in college for that.
So yeah, you're right in the middle. Kingdom of Heaven is a totally different conversation.
But I mean, no, in the sense that it's another historical fiction, but it's focusing completely on a singular plot. Because Master and Commander has a through line, but everybody's on the ship on the through line. So it's more about like let's see what Seafaring was like in like 1805.
This conversation changes dramatically though if you watch the director's cut of Kingdom of Heaven. Because it becomes a much better movie, which we could do a whole episode on. But there's a couple of excellent video essays that have come out recently about that movie, so there's no need for us to cover that here. Just search YouTube for it. But no, a weird thing about Master and Commander is that a lot of people were complaining about Russell Crowe being cast, but I think it was kind of the same way that. You cast Keanu Reeves as blonde British Constantine. It doesn't really fit.
That movie's a guilty pleasure because it's not Constantine, but it's interesting. It's fun enough.
Like this is.
Yeah, the don't worry about the historical fact in that sense of like the appearance of the person. It's do they get the heart of that person across? Basically,
his comedic timing is phenomenal.
Yeah.
The Weevil joke, the Weevil pun. I've been watching this movie for 15 years. I actually saw this in the theater, and it's been a favorite. I lied. The first time I saw it, I admired it for its production value and a number of other things, but admittedly, I thought walking out, okay, this isn't how it was advertised. I thought we were getting an action, and this,
Speaking of which, even the Blu-ray box makes it seem like it's a high stakes like speed movie.
yeah,
Oh, there's a clock and you see the Acheron like 3 times in the movie, and one of the best is when they make a side trip back for the doctor to recover, and he's just doing his thing, being a naturalist on the Galapagos, and just like, oh shit, they're here too.
damn it, train of thought gone. What was I talking about?
Oh, yeah, the misrepresentation in terms of trailers and posters and everything regarding.
So it's one of those movies that I walked in expecting a big epic action movie on the high seas.
It Comes at Night is misrepresented by all of its media.
Thank you for tying us all back together, because we're getting close to half an hour.
But no. Even if you look at the current blurb on the back of the most recent release, the Blu-ray release, makes you think it's a high stakes thriller, and it's not by any means. There are thrilling moments. It's an adventurous movie, but it's very much a day in the life almost. It's almost as if it reads like it's the journals of these people, but it's entertaining. If you have any sense of, adventure about you or patience or any of that.
Well, if you, it works on so many levels. If you are looking for the best representation of ship to ship combat in the Age of Sail, you'll never find. There's not a lot of it in the movie, but you'll never find anything better. If you're looking for something that's going for hardcore historical accuracy in terms of what life would be like on a ship like this, if you're just a history buff, it works on that level. Or if you're just watching because you can appreciate a movie with some of the highest production value and honestly some of the best acting of the last 15, 20 years, it works on that level as well. And if you're a fan of all three, it becomes a perfect movie, which is why I know we talked before we even started doing a podcast last year about doing our top however many movies, and we never really got around to that. Yeah. But this is
it's an always nebulous list for me, so it's very
same. So we didn't do it, but when we first talked about it, this is one that all of a sudden I found creeping onto my list.
Well, it does things without knowing it's doing things or deftly doing them, in terms of you really get the sense that Russell Crowe's character and Paul Bettany's character have known each other for a very long time.
Yes.
Without that having to be spelled out. You don't have that well, I've known you probably do, but it comes late enough that oh, okay, they're just kind of talking about stuff.
There's no Anakin Obi-Wan in the elevator. Hey, remember that adventure that we went on?
There's none of that book noting, basically. It's just kind of you get by the way they talk and how informal they are with each other, regardless of their positions, that they've known each other for a long time and are totally fine being candid with each other, especially in Russell Crowe's case, where he confides in him about stuff. He's like, how do I handle this? It's a really good plot point with one of the younger lords that's he's at a point where he needs to move on or not. What do I do to kick him in the ass about it, basically? And that ends up poorly. But not on his fault.
Management, the movie.
Yeah.
So.
But no, it's a good movie in that I cared very little about that aspect of life, about sailing, but you're totally engrossed if it just comes upon you. It's just one of those that surprises you with how, wow, I'm actually really invested in this. At least it did for me.
So, consensus is, for me at least, I guess it's not a consensus, Moon.
It's watchable. It's watchable. It's one of those, if you hadn't seen it when there was some murmurs about it back then, give it a look, because it's not long.
Yeah, and
it's very formative in terms of modern sci-fi.
Pay attention to the first half hour, and then for the last hour, if you feel the urge to check your Twitter or something, you're not really going to miss anything, because it's just a dragged out plot. It's kind of like RoboCop 2 in that the actual arc of RoboCop is it's all finished in the first half hour of the movie, and then it's just filler.
Yeah. Yeah, once he grabs that fucking power line, it's basically, okay, you got to beat up the bad super evil drug robot.
But at least that one had a lot of excellent scenes that felt like the original.
RoboCop 2 is not as bad on retrospect. It's not great. It's nowhere near as good as RoboCop.
But that's another episode because that's on Amazon too. That might be what I watch tonight.
Just never watch RoboCop 3.
But then I think that it is a consensus between us that if you have the opportunity to watch Master and Commander,
you're gonna have to put some time aside. It's not short, but if you're in for a cinematic experience, if you're in for a movie, it's definitely worth a try.
100%. All right, thanks for listening. Again, check out my friend Brian's Twitch channel if you're a video game person over at Antagonizer 2000, and we will see you next time.